Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have Clint Rusch as my guest. And let me tell you about Clint. He grew up in Minnesota and started college at Wisconsin. His life changed after September 11 when he joined the Army. His time in Iraq was transformative and shaped his passion, capabilities, and interest after serving his country. Clint led teams across geographies, industries, and company scale, and has consistently delivered growth-oriented, culturally rooted, and process-driven outcomes for employees, stakeholders, and clients alike. He is invigorated every day by the opportunity to help his team achieve breakthrough success, to help his people become more than they ever thought they could, and to transform organizational process, culture, and leadership in the relentless pursuit of client, stakeholder, and community excellence. So today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is learning from failures, great and small. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Clint Rusch. Clint,
Vicki,
so
thank
happy
you
to
so
have
much.
you on.
Thanks. Great to be here.
And thanks for your service to our
I
country.
appreciate that.
We always start with a very simple question. Where do you call home? Where do you live now?
Yeah, so I'm in Parkville, Missouri, which is just outside of Kansas City, just on the northwest side of the suburbs. So
Great barbecue.
this is an area where I am not welcome here because I'm a Texas barbecue guy. I lived in Texas for 10 years, and every time I meet somebody here and they talk about the barbecue here, I go, well, it's good.
Yeah.
But if you drive a little bit south, right? Somebody asked me what the best place in Kansas City was for barbecue, and I said, well, you have to drive about 9 hours south, and then basically anywhere you find. So no, I'm a Texas barbecue guy.
It's different taste. It's funny because like here I'm in Georgia,
Yeah,
and they have a certain kind of barbecue. But then if you go to North Carolina, South Carolina, well, North Carolina, really, you get a different kind of
very
barbecue.
different.
It's like
And in
vinegar
North
based.
Carolina, in North Carolina, it's different east and west in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So I love barbecue because it's such an American thing, and yet we all have there's different barbecue in every region, and so it's this great opportunity for us to all share something, and then also for us to
to argue about who's
make fun of each other and argue about it. Exactly.
But yeah, we have this one barbecue place near me, and I would not roll. That was olden days. I am old, but I would put down my window so I could smell as I was driving by the barbecues.
Yes. They just opened one very close to our house. That's one of our favorite barbecue places. It's the second location that they've got. One of them is down in the city, and then they just opened a satellite one near our house. And it's I feel like it's not going to be good for my waistline that it's that close. Yeah,
absolutely.
Not good for the waistline, not good for the heart, but very good for the belly, which is what matters, right?
That's right.
So yeah, absolutely. But yes, Kansas City is where I call home now.
All right. Well, this call was not about barbecue. So we will get on to learning from failures, great and small.
Yes.
But I gave a lot of your business accolades and things, but kind of give us your backstory of really how you went from that college student to the military to do what you're doing today.
Sure. So I grew up the child of an entrepreneur. My mom had a business in the back of our house, and it started on this little blue card table and really grew into something very successful. And so from the time I was a little kid, I saw that, and that was normal to me, right? That level of commitment and entrepreneurship, and um, so when I was in college, and 9/11 happened, I think, like anybody who was alive that day, we all remember
Yeah,
exactly what it was for us.
absolutely.
And for me, it was this real transformative moment. It was this moment where I just said, like, the world really did just shift for me that morning. And
Mhm.
um, so I dropped out of school and I joined the Army. And then the Army sent me back to college. I finished my degree after some
Of
enlisted
course.
time, and then I went back on active duty again. Um, I went to Iraq in 2007. And so from 2007 to 2009, I was in Baghdad, and had an opportunity to really help invest in the community. We did a lot of, in addition to the traditional uh, stuff that you'd assume we were doing, right? Raiding houses and rolling up bad guys and all that stuff. We also had an opportunity to
Help the
rebuild a lot of the
community.
city. Yeah. And one of the things that I saw in that experience was um, this real confirmatory aspect to what I had seen as a kid. I saw this environment where people, when we would help their businesses grow, when we would help them to have that pride of having their own business and
Yeah.
having meaningful work, um, they became incredibly committed to the safety and security of their community. And so it was really confirmatory to everything I had learned as a kid. So when I got out of the military, it was time for me to go get a job and start learning the business world. And I think that one of the things that I just saw over and over and over through my career in operations, through my career in quality and finance, doing business development, all of the things that I've done over the course of my career and culminating really in executive roles was those things that I had seen as a kid and those things that I had seen in Iraq. They're just universal. They're just absolute truisms. And so there was this really great opportunity for me to take the lessons of, little kid Clint and the lessons of soldier Clint and then the lessons of executive Clint and go, hey, this is all the same thing, right? It's
Yeah.
it's this consistent through line. And and I think what that's really allowed me to do personally is be able to draw on all of those experiences to help inform the other ones.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's been a really eye-opening thing for me to be able to say that, day to day when I'm working on making a particular decision, I don't just draw back to, the year and a half that I've been thinking about that or working on that, or, the 10 years of working in that industry, but instead I can go, hey, here's a thing that I saw when I was 7 years old that might
Yeah.
actually inform this decision today. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the story of how I got to where I'm at today.
So, and I think, kind of what you were just saying somewhat answers my next question, but I think it's important to look at this also in a different angle too. My question was, when and how did you know you were a leader? But I think to put a spin on that is when you realize your leadership skills, how did that inform you as you mentor, bring up those below you to
Yeah.
become leaders as well?
Um, that's a great question. So before I went to Iraq, I had this moment. I was out with my commander at the time, and now we're still very, very close friends.
Hmm.
And we were talking about we're out at this bar in Colorado Springs, and some guy comes in and he sees us and he kind of sizes us up for a second. And then he goes and sits down, and my boss says, you know what he was doing? And I said, yeah, he was sizing us up. We're obviously in the military. We've got the military haircuts, and it's pretty obvious. We're a military town, and he's sizing us up. And my boss said, that's not what he's doing. He's asking himself if he could do it. He's asking himself if he could lead the way, like if he could do the job. And he
Hmm.
said, the thing is, that guy's going to go his whole life and he's never going to know.
Yeah.
And he said, you're not. You're going to know. And I said, oh, thanks, man. That's a really, like, I really appreciate that. And he said, I didn't say you're going to be good at it. I said, you're going to know. You're going to know one way or the other, right? You're going to get the question answered. It doesn't mean it's going to be a good answer.
Mm.
He said, there's going to be a day. It's going to be the first day that you get blown up or the first day you get shot at, whatever it is. And your guys are going to look to the person that they trust. Your guys are going to look to the person that they say, that's the person who can keep me alive.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, when that moment happens, if you see a bunch of eyes looking at you, that's great. Like, congratulations. And if you don't, it's very bad news for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to
Yeah.
know. You're going to know for sure. And so fast forward, we end up in Iraq, and we're in a firefight for the first time, and a bunch of eyes look at me. And I remember coming back to the outpost, and I had this big grin on my face, and he said, yeah, they looked at you, didn't they? And I said, they did. Like, that was it. And so that moment was really impactful for me because it was confirmatory. It did tell me that, I was doing the thing I was supposed to do. But I've shared that with other leaders as I've helped to mentor and develop people, and said, you're not going to have that moment, right? Thank God.
Right. Right.
Thank God you're not going to have that moment, but you're going to have your version of that.
Yeah.
You're going to have that part where, the customer is really unhappy and they're threatening to drop us, and your team is sitting in the room, and you all, like, the call hangs up, right? And the speaker phone goes dead, and the room is just silent for 15 seconds, and they're all looking at you. And what you say in that moment is going to define whether you're a leader or whether you're just in a leadership seat.
Yeah.
And that moment is really that's what it's about. It's about finding those moments and being okay with saying, I don't have all the answers, and I'm probably going to get some of them wrong, but put your faith in me, put your trust in me, and together we're going to be able to get to the right place, right? It's that confidence to be able to say being wrong is something that's short term, and those failures are things that you can recover from. And so I think that moment and that example and that story and that experience for me gave me a lot of empathy for the fear and the concern that junior leader has the first time they step on the
Yeah.
stage, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough, and that's probably the hardest thing for a first-time leader to do. When you go from being a doer to a supervisor, and you're just watching people do the task that you knew how to do, and then going, hey, do this, not that. That's really, I don't want to say it's easy, because it's not easy, but it's certainly easier than the first time that you step into a leader role where maybe you're supervising multiple tasks, or you're providing more strategic direction, or you're, in some cases, leading people who are doing things that you haven't done.
Yeah.
And that's something where you just have to have that innate confidence.
I found too, and my next question was what differentiates you, differentiates leaders. And I know I found in my experience, especially in that role where you were in operations and now you're strategic, now you're the leader, maybe one of the two differentiators is that you know you could do that job. You know you could tell them how to do that job, but you know you need them to figure it out themselves.
100%.
And to be able to be silent enough or say the words to encourage them that they can do it.
Right.
That's when you show that you're a leader.
If all you're doing is doing the job for your subordinate, right? Then what exactly is their role?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I had a boss that I asked him, like, hey, I'm not inviting you to this meeting. I'm going to this, and like, is that okay? And he said, yes, that's very okay. That's kind of the goal, Clint, is that you go to the meeting so I don't have to. Not because I'm going to go sit in my office and twiddle my thumbs, but because then I'm going to go to a different meeting, and then we can go to 2 meetings. See how this works? And I went like, all right, you don't need to, and he goes, and then if we have a third person on the team, we could go to 3 meetings. I go, okay, you made your point, right? But there's something to that, which is when we step in and take, when we take the job of the person on our team, because to your point, we know how to do it, right? Or we could do it. there's a lot of bad things that happen there, right? We get too bogged down. That person becomes unmotivated. That person becomes, they become very uncommitted because they go, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right. And the team can't scale, the team can't grow, the team can't do more than you become the rate limiting factor for the team or for the business. And it's really a problem.
Yeah. The other side of that too is there are more ways. I always use the example of GPS, in leadership,
Yeah.
because, you have a way that you did things and that worked. And then this person comes in that's your employee or a team member and they did it differently. And and it's still same outcome,
Sure.
right? But instead of rewarding them, congratulating them, thanking them for showing you a different way to do something, that
Yeah.
you say, well, why you should have done it this way. This is the right way to do it. And that, as you said, is demotivating. And then that person all of a sudden thinks smaller. That,
Yes.
okay, I can't I have to ask him how to do it or her how
Yes.
to do it.
Yes. That GPS exam, I love that. I'm stealing that.
You steal it. Yeah, steal it.
Yeah.
But
No,
it's
that's
true.
such a good way to visualize it, though. That's
Yeah.
because there are two routes to it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I talk to teams that I've led, and the model I use is this 10-80-10 model.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I say is I own the first 10%, right? I have to properly scope what the ask is. You
That's
own
right.
the middle 80%. You got to get us close to it. And then together we own the last 10%.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of safety for them and a lot of confidence to be able to say, I don't have to have a perfect product when I come back. I don't have to have all the answers. There can be some rough edges that we can sand together, right? It also sets it up so that when they come back with it, they aren't expecting me to just rubber stamp it. They are
Yeah.
expecting me to say, what if we tweak this over here? And so having that construct from the outset is really helpful to be able to give somebody the confidence to say, yeah, I own the middle 80, but I've got the safety net of that last 10. And I
Yeah.
also have the expectation of it.
Whenever I hear that, I was a project manager for a lot of years. And as a project lead, you spend that first 10%, to me, the most vital 10%,
Absolutely.
doing all the background stuff, the strategy. What am I going to do? What team's going to be part of this? Then once you have that team built, then that team is the 80%, and they're
Yes.
doing all the tasks, all the goals are being achieved. And that last really 20% is dealing with any problems, unknown things, and things, again, as you said, working together with with the team itself. And so,
Right.
yeah, 10, 80, 20 is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, that makes more than 100%.
Yeah. 10-80-10 is how it works to get to 100. Yes.
Yes. But we
So there
always
you
say
go.
we
We
want to give
refined the last part for you there.
110%.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. So how do you make decisions in the most optimized way? We always kind of skirt around actually making a final decision because we are afraid of failing.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But so talk to me about the optimization in the mindset that failure is not a bad thing.
Yeah. So I think I think there's two things people don't recognize when it comes to making a decision. And that fear of failure takes over. So the first thing that people don't recognize is that you should be really afraid of not making the decision. You should be really, really afraid of the outcome not being a wrong outcome, but being no outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the thing has gotten to the point where a decision needs to be made, a choice needs to be made, something needs to be changed, it clearly isn't working.
Yeah.
And so there is a need for a decision. Not making a decision, allowing that paralysis of analysis or the fear of getting it wrong. If you don't do anything, you're definitely going to be wrong. So there's an element of when I was learning, this was early in my military career. I had a leader who basically challenged me and said, how many decisions were you deciding between? How many choices were you deciding between? And I said 3. And he said, what's the odds of you getting it right if you don't make a decision? And I said, 0%. And he said, what's the
Yeah.
odds of you making it right if you just throw a dart? And I said, 33%. He said, okay, so throw the dart. Just throw the dart. Like you're going to be better off. And so I think that where people, so to make decisions, the first one is to recognize not making the decision is the worst possible outcome.
Yeah.
The absolute worst possible outcome. Okay, so now we're just making a choice. We're not having to do the should we or shouldn't we. We're having to do the should we A or should we B. Right? And that becomes that now has really changed it to be able to say if it's A or B, okay, can we walk this decision back if we get it wrong? Odds are yes. In most cases, decisions are two-way doors. There are a few that are one-way doors, and those are ones where we need to spend a lot of time thinking.
Yeah.
But when we've got two-way doors, if you get it wrong, now you know it's the other choice. I was an artilleryman by training when I was in the military, and very rarely when I was a forward observer, and so I was the guy who was calling for fire and radioing in, and then the rounds come in. And very rarely do you land your first round on the target. Right? You almost never get your first round on the target, but that first round gives you the ability to adjust and bring your subsequent rounds in to hit the target. And so being okay with the idea that you missed, being okay with the idea that those minor, those small failures provide information to allow you to iterate your decision. That becomes very freeing in terms of being able to make that decision. And I think that when you live in a world where you say, okay, not doing something is the worst possible outcome. If I get it wrong, that's okay. Like I can just adjust and then get it righter. Great. Now it becomes really simple to just say, what's the one with the greatest likelihood of what's the greatest probability of success? Look to the team, ask them for their guidance, and eventually it's just, okay, we're going to go with A over B.
Yeah.
Sometimes A is wrong, and then you got to just adjust.
And, we talk about in the military how important building trust and creating trust is. As a leader, too, just in that, what you were just talking about in the decision making, it's really, if your team will follow you, it's because they trust you. So talk about things that you can do as a leader to create and build trust.
I think it comes down to authenticity and transparency. I think if you are not authentic and transparent, then your trust becomes transactional. Your trust becomes I've purchased your trust, and transactional trust dissipates in an instant as soon as the transaction expires. If you are authentic and you are transparent and you are candid with people, I think you can create trust. And I think if you are not those things, your trust is built on, it's a foundation of sand. One of the things that I have really emphasized with every team I've ever led is that I'm going to get things wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to make mistakes. That's going to happen. And I tell people that right up front because I think it's incredibly important to, one, acknowledge that I'm human, right? And I don't have this hubris to say, hey, look, I'm in a leadership role, so I'm never wrong. And when things don't go, right, then I'm going to blame you. No, I'm going to screw up. I'm going to screw up. And when I do, I'm going to call my own foul. I'm going to say, I made the mistake. And then we're going to get better. And the advantage of that is that when that occurs, and it will, whether you acknowledge it or you don't acknowledge it, you're going to screw up.
Yeah.
When you have that mistake, if you've told your team, hey, listen, guys, I'm going to make mistakes. And when I make them, I'm going to recognize them. And when I recognize them, we're going to fix them. Okay. That's one path. The other path is I'm going to deny that those mistakes are ever going to occur. Well, they're going to happen. That's an inevitability. So when they happen, the person who I told I'm going to make a mistake, and when that mistake happens, I'm going to call my own foul and then we're going to fix it. That person watches that unfold and they go, wow, he did make a mistake. He said he was going to make a mistake. And then they see me raise my hand and go, hey guys, I made a mistake. And they go, wow, he called his own foul and he said he was going to do that. And then I say, hey, group, how do we get better at this? And somebody says, well, we should do this instead of that. And I say, great, that's what we're going to do instead. And then it works. And they go, wait a minute. He also said that we were going to fix things. All the things he said were going to happen are happening. And so the mistake actually becomes something that builds trust.
Mm-hmm.
When things go wrong, it's an opportunity for you to, for things to get, for your reputation to get better or get worse. We had an instance yesterday, 2 days ago. Our lawn guys, they came out and they were fertilizing our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And the crew was being lazy. They didn't want to use the push fertilizer. They wanted to use the riding one. And they slid into my neighbor's fence and they trashed the fence and they got it stuck. And so in trying to get it unstuck, they tore up all of our grass. And so if I walk outside and look at my backyard, I'm gesturing like you can see that it's out that way. But if you walk outside and look at my backyard, the grass is all torn up and the fence is all damaged. And I texted my neighbor because he's out of town and I said, hey, I don't know how to say this, but like your fence is all trashed. We're gonna make this right. Like I'm gonna talk to the lawn people, but I'm not gonna hide behind them. No matter what, we're gonna make this right. Okay.
Right.
And I said, aside from the fact that like I'm damaging your fence and I needed your help with some electrical wiring. And when I was out of town, there was water coming through the ceiling and my wife called you and we had a snake in our front yard that then went over to your yard. Aside from all those things, I promise I'm a good neighbor. And he was laughing and he texted back. He said, you're a great neighbor. I appreciate it. But I thought like, this is something where I was telling him, hey, this thing of like, I damaged your property, not me personally, but my vendor. And instead of him looking at it and going, gosh, that Clint guy, I don't like living next to him. He said, no, it's great, man. We're good. We're good. So it's an opportunity to get better.
Yeah.
Now, conversely, our lawn guys, they tried to shirk responsibility. Oh, that's not something that we did. And I said, guys, listen, I got video, I got pictures. And oh, by the way, I think everybody knows that this is not something like, come on, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
When things go bad, you've got an opportunity to come up or come down. And so I think that the way a leader builds trust, the way that anybody builds trust, is to just be honest, be transparent.
Yeah. But I think it's also important from a leadership perspective too, by doing that, by showing vulnerability, by showing willingness to admit your failures or mistakes. It's leading by example. It's now giving your employees, your team, the approval, the acknowledgement that it is okay for you to come to me and tell me, hey, I messed that up bad. But this is how I'm going to fix it. I used to have a boss that says, don't come to me with problems, just come to me with solutions, but you have to get to the solution part, you got to tell the story of the problem.
You have to. Yeah. Yeah. I had a guy, at a company that I led, who made a mistake. This was when I was leading a logistics company. He made a mistake. He forgot to do some paperwork and we had a shipment of meat that was headed to Japan that we couldn't offload because we didn't do the right paperwork. We didn't get it inspected right before it left, and he screwed up. It was 100% his screw up, and he came to me and he was so defeated looking, and he said, "I can't believe I made this mistake. I can't believe I screwed this up. This is how did I?" And I said, "Okay, what are you doing about it?" And he said, "Well, I've got this taken care of. I've got this taken care of." Like he had worked it out. I said, "Okay, you're good." And he said, "What?" And I said, "You're fine. Like that. I'm not happy about it. I'm not like, let's not do it again."
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right?
Spilled
Let's not do
milk
it again.
now.
But exactly, it's spilled milk now. Like, what are we gonna do?
It's like,
And so I ended up actually promoting him, not in that moment, but a little later. And I remember we were talking about it, and I said the way you handled that, like you weren't in a leadership role, but you were leading. You were showing all the people around you that like that's the way to handle it when things go bad. To your point, that's you're creating the culture that says it's okay to make that mistake. Don't make it twice.
Right.
But like just figure it out and solve it and move forward. We're not going to be perfect. No one's going to be perfect.
And a lot of employee relations surveys that are done in a lot of companies, trust and respect are two low things oftentimes. And I think a lot of the respect one comes from the fact that somebody, your management, it's usually because of poor management, where management is not allowing you to fail. It is making it seem like everything that they do is perfect and never wrong, and is always trying to make you look like you're not the smartest person in the room. And that's not the way to build respect and or trust.
It's not. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. People don't want to work for, people don't work for companies, they work for people.
That's exactly right.
And so you just have to recognize that there's a need to create that person-to-person connection. There's the need, and look, that's whether it's an employer-employee relationship, whether it's a manager, or whether it's two neighbors, or two people at the country club, or at the tennis, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's just interacting with human beings and doing so in a way that's mutually respectful and that's honest. And I think when that fails, you're just, whether you're losing today or whether you lose down the road, you're going to lose. If you don't have it, you can't be successful.
So what would be the last 2 words of wisdom you'd give before we end this interview?
Last 2 words of wisdom. Can I have more than 2?
Yeah, you can have a sentence.
Okay, I can have a sentence. All right. It's very basic. I think the secret to life is to go first and go positive and don't quit.
Yeah.
I think if you do those 3 things, smile at the person when you're in the elevator, stick your hand out to shake a hand. If you go first and you go positive and you don't quit, you're gonna have setbacks. Everybody has setbacks, but eventually you get good things. I think the Conan O'Brien's his speech at the end of his time at the Tonight Show. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. And if people out there haven't seen it, they should absolutely see it. You can find it on YouTube. I watch it once a month. I think it's one of the great 5-minute segments of people talking about why cynicism is bad and why optimism is good. And I think if you just reinforce that over and over, go first, go positive, and don't quit, you'll be just fine. That's the secret to life. That's the secret to leadership.
For sure. All right. Well, it is time now for me to share my screen. So if you've enjoyed this conversation that we've been having about leadership and understanding that failure is okay, large or small, great or small, then you'll want to have this contact information. So if you're just listening, again, you should quick run and get a paper and pencil. If you're unable to do that, everything will be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. Please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. But if you are watching, please take a screenshot of this slide. So his website is clintrusch.com, and that is CLINTRUSCH.com, clintrusch.com. LinkedIn is Steel14. That's the number 14, Steel, STEEL 14. Facebook is clint.rush.7, the number 7. And his Twitter is field.rush, which is FEELDARUSCH, field.rush. I'll say that all day long because I love that. I'm going to turn it over to Clint to talk to you about his website and things that you find when you go there, as well as any social media he spends the most time in. Clint?
Sure. So on my website, there's a few things about my background, my history, but there's also a section in there of my kind of core operating principles, my beliefs, my guiding principles, which the construction of that document was something that I did years ago, and it's been very impactful for me. And so it's something you might find interesting to read. It's an activity I'd encourage everybody to take. As far as social, I'm on LinkedIn pretty much nonstop. And check Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days, probably about once or twice a day.
Awesome. Well, Clint, it's been just a pleasure to talk with you and share hear your stories and the wonderful tips you shared today. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.